Okay, last time we looked at dividing with integers, otherwise just known as whole numbers, and that's all well and good. We can do the division there, but we should know that not everything we divide is going to be an integer. Sometimes we're going to have decimals and sometimes we're going to have fractions. So today is just a short video on what to do if you end up with some decimals and you're trying to do some division. So there's two places that decimals could show up. The first one is that the decimal could show up in the dividend. So that's the number that's actually being divided. So this is not really a big deal. It's basically business as usual. We don't have to do anything special except remember where the decimal place goes. You'll see an example of that in a second. The other place that it could show up is in the divisor. So that's the number that is actually being divided into the dividend. So this is a little bit more of a problem. We need to take care of this before we can do our division, or else we're not really going to know where the decimal place is going to show up. Or it could show up in both, but that's no big deal because we just do our divisor adjustment and then the dividend just kind of comes along with for the ride. So the important one is you need to check your divisor, the number that you are being divided by, to see if you need to make an adjustment. So let's see the first type first. So we want to divide 54.8 by 8. So our decimal is in our dividend. So we want to just perform the normal division algorithm as if the decimal wasn't there. The decimal in our quotient, that's the answer, should be directly above the decimal in our dividend. That's the part inside the box there, the number that's being divided. And then we can add zeros at the end if our remainder is not 0 after the decimal point. So some of your problems, you had a remainder because we were dealing with integers. We want to know how much is left over. If you're dealing with decimals, I don't care about the remainder anymore. I want to actually keep dividing it out until I get an actual answer, until my remainder is 0, or sometimes you have an infinitely repeating decimal, in which case you just figure out where it's repeating and you can stop there. Okay, so let's do this. Let's divide 54.8 by 8. So the first thing we're going to do is 8 doesn't go into 5. It does go into 54 6 times. So we multiply 6 times 8 to get 48, and we're subtracting now. We're going to subtract 54.8 minus 48, essentially 48.0. So we get 6 and then 8. We just carry down the 8. You don't have to carry down the decimal as you do the subtracting. You can if you want to, but it's not really a big deal. So now we ask ourselves, how many times does 8 go into 68? The answer there is 8, because 8 times 8 is 64. So again, we're going to subtract, and we have a remainder of 4. So if we were just doing integers, maybe we would just say, you know, the answer is 68 with a remainder of 4. But we're doing decimals, so we want to keep going. So that means I need to add a 0 to the end here, because 54.8 is exactly the same as 54.80. There's no difference in the value of the number. We're allowed to just add zeros onto the end there past the decimal place. So I'm going to bring down that 0, and now I can ask myself, how many times does 8 divide into 40? The answer is 5. And then 5 times 8 is 40, so now we have no remainder and our problem is just done. So 54.8 divided by 8 is going to be 6.85. Okay, before we move on to the next one, I want you to notice something. So get out your calculator, don't do this by hand, but 30,000 divided by 6,000 is 5. 3,000 divided by 600 is also 5. 300 divided by 60 is also 5. 30 divided by 6 is also 5. So what do you think 3 divided by 0.6 is? The answer is it's going to be 5. So as long as the decimal place in the dividend moves the same number of places as the decimal in the divisor, the quotient does not change. The answer does not change. So if we go up here to this 30,000 divided by 6,000 and we just move our decimal place 1 to the left, so we're looking at this one and we move the decimal place here 1 to the left to get 3,000, we moved the decimal place here, 1 to the left to get 600. The answer did not change because we moved the decimal place the same place value. So the quotient, it's kind of a ratio of how much we can divide it up that does not change. So we can use that. If we have a decimal in our divisor, we can move the place of that decimal to the right until we are dividing by an integer, a whole number. But if we do that, we need to remember to move the decimal in the dividend the exact same number of spaces. So let's try this. Let's divide 46.4 by 1.6. So we've got a problem. 1.6 is our divisor, and we don't want to divide by 1.6. We want to divide by something that's a whole number. So we fix this problem by moving the decimal one place to the right. So now all of a sudden our 1.6 is now 16. Since we moved the decimal one place to the right in our divisor, we also have to move it one place to the right in our dividend. So that means instead of a dividend of 46.4, we're going to have a dividend of 464. So we moved both of them to the right, and we're going to get the same answer. So 46.4 divided by 1.6 is the exact same as 464 divided by 16. And from here we just do our algorithm. 16 will go into 46 two times. That gives us 32. We're actually subtracting 320 because that 2 is in the tens place. So that leaves us with 144. And 16 goes into 144 9 times. A way to kind of estimate that is that 16 would go into 160 10 times, and we're not much below that. So 16 goes into 144 9 times. It goes in there exactly 9 times, so we're left with a 0 remainder, and we're done. So 46.4 divided by 1.6 is 29, just the same as 464 divided by 16 is 29. They have the same quotient. All right, that's all I've got for you, and I'll see you next time.